All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our session on going beyond energy. I'm Mark Gasper. I am the U.S. Energy Manager for IKEA. Wanted to talk to you today about the solar program that we've implemented over the last couple of years throughout the U.S. This is just a representative picture of one of our most recent stores. Typically, we've got about 1 to 1.1 megawatts on our roofs, which is about 30% of our annual consumption that we offset through the system. So just quick overview, how does this fit in with our overall energy strategy? Big question that comes up is why we chose to do capital purchases versus PPAs or leases. Some of the market drivers, why we felt this was a good investment to make at this time. And then wanted to give you a few takeaways as far as the overview of our implementation process and kind of show you what metrics really drive whether or not these systems will pencil out for you. So one of the big benefits that we have is IKEA as a company. The sustainability strategy is top-down. Our CEO believes in it very wholeheartedly throughout our supply value chain, and that trickles down throughout everything we do, including our building energy. So our renewable goal is really, at some point in the future, to hit 100% renewable energy. Today, we've got about 50% of that covered globally, both through solar on our roofs, through PV, solar thermal, geothermal, wind generation, and biomass. The U.S. solar program, we are a big blue and yellow box. We've got a huge roof footprint. For the U.S., we've got 38 retail stores, our corporate headquarters outside of Philadelphia, and 5 distribution centers throughout the country. Out of that, with the exception of 5 buildings, we will have solar on by the end of August of this year, which puts us about 89%. 39 total solar projects in 22 states, 17 that are still under construction. About half of those will wrap up in the next 2 weeks, which gives us 49 million kilowatt hours a year that we're generating from solar on our roofs. And the sizes range. 57 is on our corporate headquarters. That's a small roof. We've got some distribution centers that are 5+ megawatts. I mean, they're within the top 10 within North America for size. Environmental benefits. This is really, core to what we're looking at. That 49 million kilowatt hours per year translates into a lot of carbon offset. If you look for equivalencies, 4,000 homes, 6,600 cars. So it provides a great sustainable benefit for us. So capital purchase versus PPA. When we first approached senior management with how do we reach this goal of 100% renewable energy, we started looking at PPAs. This was about 4 years ago. We started to look into it. And really, they came back to us and said, look, if these PPA providers can make this pencil, we need to figure out a way to do it. We don't want to just rent our roof space out to somebody else. So that was really our challenge, to figure out how the numbers work. It took us a lot of time to get educated on the process, but we did figure out how it does work, and it provides a good benefit for us. IKEA is a privately held company. We don't have to answer to shareholders. We do have cash on hand to make investments, so that's a big benefit that we have. We do own all of our property. We don't lease anything. So we are able to take advantage of all the tax incentives that are out there. We own all of our environmental attributes, so that directly goes back to being able to, show our carbon reduction for our sustainability goals. And obviously it strengthens the IKEA brand because it does show our commitment to sustainability. Some of the drivers for this, I think good is probably an understatement. I think it's personally a great return on investment if you've got the cash available to invest. There's plenty of incentives out there to make this work. The biggest driver is that you're hedging your electricity prices. which I'll show you in a little bit. I mean, this is over the course of 25 years. Historically, electricity rates are not dropping, and there's no sight that they're ever going to drop. If anything, they're going to continue to increase at a higher pace than they have previously. The costs for commercial solar installations have come down dramatically. From the first system we did back in 2007, it's between 50 and 60%, and within the last 3 years, it's come down another 35%. The systems are depreciated over 5 years, so that helps as far as our financial payback. We take advantage of the property tax, sales tax exemptions. And as far as the bottom line savings, I mean, this isn't just for solar, this is anything, where we can save our operational costs. Every dollar that we can save off that bottom line, if you're looking at whatever your gross profit margin is, that translates into a much higher sales percentage. So when you make that as a business case, our CFO, our senior management has all been on board with that. As far as solar irradiation, we have stores in Chicago, Minnesota. A lot of questions come up, how do you make it work? There's not much sun in Minnesota. Well, actually, it's really not that much different than the rest of the country. Aside from where we are here in the hot spot of the United States, there's enough available sunshine throughout the year to make these work. The only place that we found really makes it difficult is up in the Pacific Northwest. Another reason for that is Washington State and Oregon, because of their hydropower, actually have some of the lowest electricity rates in the country. That's more of a driver for the payback than anything else. This is what was put out in 2008, so it's a little bit dated, but 10.5 cents is the average. California, the average for the state's 12.5 cents. There's 47 separate utilities out there. You can see most of ours in California were 15, 16 cents per kilowatt hour, much higher in Connecticut and New York. So, obviously with those, the higher the electricity rate, the quicker and the better payback you're going to get. So again, I mean, from 1999 to 2010, there was a 29% increase in electricity cost for commercial buildings in the US, and that's pretty much the same for residential, a little bit higher for industrial. Currently, we're at a market low, but we work with a lot of sourcing analysts, and that 29% is expected to grow much higher over the next 10 years. So again, getting back to we're hedging our electricity pricing, and when we do our pro forma, we're actually a little bit conservative. Even over the time that we've been tracking our systems over the last 2 to 3 years, we're getting better returns already. We've seen, 5-8% increases in certain states. SREC markets, currently a lot of this is located on the East Coast. Just to give a quick snapshot, a lot of people hear about New Jersey. New Jersey was very lucrative for quite a while. They were paying 64.5 cents per kilowatt hour for selling your SRECs back to the utility. That market, because of supply and demand, there's an oversupply, but it's down to about $155 as of June. But if you look at that compared to what their average 2010 rate is, it's still in excess of what you're paying per kilowatt hour. So you're basically doubling your savings. So if any of you are getting calls from people wanting to sell you solar, Massachusetts, Maryland, DC, all very good markets. They obviously know where the returns are. Just wanted to go through the process outline. I kind of broke this up into pre-construction, construction, and post-construction. The thing that I've learned throughout this process is the construction, to be honest with you, is not that much different than any other construction project to manage. What is unique about this is the upfront work that has to be done and the back end work. I'll go through pre-construction in more detail. The only thing with construction, Beyond permitting, there's also, you have to get into the process with the utilities. Once you're interconnecting to their grid power, then you've got to play by their rules and regulations for what you can and can't do. On the back end, asset management. You're setting the system up to produce for you for the next 25 years. You're essentially printing your money. And obviously you want that performance to be at or above 100% so that you're recouping your investment. In addition to that, as far as SRECs, if you're selling those to the utilities, that's a process that either you're going to have to take on in-house or find somebody to manage that process for you. And there's a couple other things as far as reporting that's ongoing, even with the 30% federal investment tax credit. Every year you've got to prove to them that the system is outputting. So just to go through pre-construction, initial and detailed studies. A lot of us, in retail have prototypical stores. Every site is unique. There's no such thing when you try to look at this, and this is a lot of the canned stuff you might get from vendors. They're going to try to sell you a system. You got to really dig into it for every location to figure out if it's going to work. DesireUSA.org is a great resource to at least see what's available in locations that you're interested in. As I mentioned, the tax credit is available through 2016. The detailed review of the actual electricity consumption and rates is really important. When I showed that slide for what the average is, it's really not a very good indicator. If you just want to get a quick snapshot for a general range that you're in, that's fine. But when you really start to look into it, it's a lot more complicated, and a lot of times we'll work with the utilities to model what our actual savings will be. In most cases, it's much higher, because when you've got time of use rates that you're paying throughout the summer for peak demands, you're offsetting a lot of that throughout the year with the system. Permitting requirements, it varies. A lot of permitting agencies really aren't up to speed on solar. Especially, I'll give you an example, in Minnesota, we put a 1 megawatt system on our roof. The entire state has 5 megawatts. When we came in there, they were like deer in the headlights. They were like, whoa, what are you guys doing? So it took us a while to work with them and try to educate them on the process. And we were successful in doing that. Just to give you a quick example, 50,000 square feet of roof space. Roughly 70% of that, if you don't have a lot of rooftop equipment, 8 watts per square foot is about the average. So you can very quickly figure out, 50,000 square feet, you get 280 kW system. For our roofs, we've got 200,000 square feet, so you can see where we're putting about a megawatt on those roofs. Performing that detailed cost analysis, whatever internally financial hurdles you need to meet, whether it's ROI, IRR, payback, we actually go with simple payback. That's just the way globally we're set up. And then determining what estimated system size would be permitted. Just to give you a quick look, PV output, obviously in December and January when you're at the winter solstice, you're not going to get as much output. But the benefit is you're peaking in the summer months, which, for most of us, if you've got cooling load, that's when you want to offset that peak demand. In general, April, May, June are the months you're going to peak out with the system. As temperatures get higher in the summer, the system actually degrades a little bit because of that heat. One thing, I won't spend too much time on this, but another step above renewable energy on the energy efficiency side is when you're looking at demand, for this system in particular, we're taking 50% of that demand off, which is a huge savings on our electricity rates. The problem is most of them set your kW demand at your highest point during the month. So what we look at where we circle there is what can we do to minimize that demand? Do we pre-cool the store so that we reduce that? trying to take as much benefit out of that, and it's really only through the solar process that we started to see some of those things. Structural analysis, obviously how much weight can your roof support? We engage a third-party structural engineer to review all of our roofs. The most important thing there, make sure they're familiar with doing PV. It's not like there's a checklist in the structural engineering community that says, okay, your roof can support this. There's assumptions that we make. We've had some come back and say, your roof can't support anything. And then others come back and say, hey, you got 10 pounds per square foot. And both of them are willing to sign off on it. So, you have to understand, what they should be looking at for your system. If you come back 0 to 2 pounds, there is a solution for almost every roof. I mean, we have some roofs that have very low capacity, but there are solutions out there. If you want a system that is not attached to your building, you're looking at 4 pounds per square foot or more. Roof analysis is another one. We bring the manufacturer in of the roof. They do a pre-inspection and a post-inspection to make sure the warranty stays intact. But you need to do that evaluation. Are you going to get 10 years out of your roof? Is it 20 years old? Obviously you don't want to put something on a roof that's that old, because to remove this system and replace it obviously is going to be expensive. Performance specifications. This is where we've really gotten into a lot of detail. We want to make sure that our systems are performing as well as they can. Design to code doesn't mean it's going to be designed to last for 25 years. I like to think we're building, not only a lot of systems, but some of the best systems that are out there. It is our asset. We want to make sure it performs. Just to give you a quick example, we did a PPA back in 2000, and things have changed. There was no performance guarantee in there. Over the last 3 years of that system, you know what it produced? Nothing. So we're renting our roof out and getting zero benefit out of it. And that's where we said, what are the indicators to make this work? Interconnection applications, just to get, there's work that needs to be done with the utilities to see what they will and will not allow. Most systems that you put on the roof is not going to tax their distribution system. Incentive applications, California, we went in 2 years ago. It was like a mad rush. It was like the gold rush. Everybody wanted to get those incentives. So if that's planned into your ROI, be aware that you need to be really proactive on that. I mean, these things go in hours in most cases. So a lot of people focus on cost per watt. That's what the media puts out there. Modules have come down in price. But really, it's the dollars per kilowatt hour that drives the system. And a lot of that works with, how well is the system designed? What type of equipment are you choosing? And obviously, preventative maintenance as well. Here's an example, LA market. You go out to bid, you get $3.25 per watt, which actually prices have come down even under $3 these days. So you might compare these systems and go, well, it's $3.25 a watt, it fits within my budget. I know this is technical, highly technical, but this D-rate factor, if your vendor's talking to you and they don't know the details of this, walk away. They don't know what they're doing. That number is very important, as is the array tilt. The modules can be tilted on different 10 degrees, 5 degrees. It all depends on how much the output is. So you can see here, as far as the system output, you're at a low of 673 versus 769, which, $2.11 per kilowatt hour for the system. That translates into a better return. So you want your returns to be as good as you can if you're trying to make a business case for these systems. 20-year cumulative savings for a system like this, $2.5 million. If you did a PPA, it's probably about $300,000. So I'll leave you just with a few solar resources, things that we found very useful and use on a day-to-day basis, and that's it. Thank you.
I actually don't have a PowerPoint, my name is John Marzec. I'm with Staples Energy Management, and without the PowerPoint, I'll address you from the table here. Staples are in 28 countries and 5 continents around the world, and are second online retailer only to Amazon. We've achieved 16.4% portfolio-wide reduction in energy intensity in 2011, amounting to $3.8 million annually. That has impacted the earnings per share by almost 2 cents a share and added 26 cents to the stock price. We reduced our absolute carbon footprint by 30% based on a 2001 baseline. In 2011, 53% of our national electrical needs were being met by green energy, renewable energy. We're shooting for 75% in 2012. We have over 10 megawatts of solar installed in over 34 sites, and we have a goal of 50 megawatts that we are developing. We have 2 Bloom fuel cells on a couple of sites so that we're nearly meeting the entire electrical demand for a couple of facilities with those combined technologies. We are at 420 Energy Star rated sites with a goal of 500 this year, which we feel comfortable we can achieve. We're Energy Star Partner of the Year for the past 2 consecutive years, Platts Global Energy Efficiency Program of the Year, CoreNet Best Sustainability Management Program of the Year, Prism's Outstanding Performance in Energy Management for 2011, and we've been 8 consecutive years on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. So we've done good, and we're continuing to do as best we can. How we could get that done was that early on we had very good buy-in from administration who felt that energy management was an important feature of what we did. Finance as well was on board, and when we develop our projects, we always speak in the language of business and not in energy management, so that the decision makers can be there and support these projects as we go forward. We have a good organizational structure so that the design, construction, fixtures, energy, and facilities groups are all under one person so that there is no contest between them and that things can get rolled out very efficiently. We're constantly piloting new technologies as a result. Staples is very interested in leveraging their brand where they can to develop these technologies with upcoming companies and hopefully attract investors with that kind of interest. We have a new aggressive store prototype that's LEED Silver. And we've been developing energy conservation measures in the early days with the EPA under the Green Lights program, which developed into Energy Star. The lighting was early approach, obviously, that everybody does and has great return. For us, the lighting has gotten to the point where it's diminishing on its return. The lighting that in our stores is very efficient, and there's not much further you can go with it. LEDs in our minds have, at least for the store, the sales floor and in a linear type of application, the costs are not quite there yet. We use them wherever we can, wall packs, downlights, and exterior lighting, dock lighting, but we're looking for that to break through and to be the next thing for the linears. So for us, we've looked to the rooftops, and this spring we did 1,600 VFDs on 300 stores as the next measure that we feel has value. We feel that the VFDs can provide twice the energy impact for half the cost of a lighting retrofit. That's what we're looking for as an outcome of that program. We've partnered closely with Energy Star. As I said, we have 420 facilities with 500 as the goal. We've also joined the Battle of the Buildings program, which is sort of the biggest loser, shed as much energy you can over the course of the year. And it's been a good learning tool for us and for associates to talk about what it takes to reduce energy and make these gains. We're looking at software tools to provide analytics. We're lucky to have installed EMS systems on almost every store and many of our FCs, so that we have tremendous amounts of information pouring in. Now we're just overwhelmed with it, so we're looking for ways to learn from it to make better decisions. A big thing for us in the FCs was a partnership with GE to develop an intense energy audit, which we call a treasure hunt, where we go into the closed building, see its operation, perform an investment grade audit, engage the associates on what we're doing, get the buy-in from the management, bring a team of individuals who represent every aspect of the building, not just motors or lights, but conveyors, HVAC equipment, and material handling equipment, battery charging. And then we were able to come in the next day, see the startup, understand what we can, talk to the associates, see how they operate the building, and then develop while we're there a return and a cost for the entire project, and do a report out as a team to the facility. And that's been very successful, receiving over 20% savings leaving there. Energy Star for us is an important tool and a partner for getting to where we're at. We have all of our facilities in the Profile Manager, and we believe it is a cycle of energy use that we can demonstrate to the customer, where we have over 700 Energy Star rated products in our offerings that come from a building that is itself Energy Star rated. We're able to ship these products in boxes with the Energy Star label because we've acquired the partnership status. We can then arrive at a store that is itself Energy Star rated. Within the store we have computers and copy centers that are Energy Star. They go out the store with a bag with a label, and then when the customer is done, we can return the electronics we recycle, the toner and cartridges, batteries, and everything ends up returning back into the cycle. So it's been a very successful program for us. It's a good tool if you're looking to trend and track and to really get some recognition for all of your hard work, and as well as the financial benefits that come from just good practices. So, thank you. So we have a few minutes if there's just general questions.
A question for Mark. Have you implemented the solar in Europe also, or?
Yes, we have.
What are the results between Europe and
I'm sorry?
What kind of results did you get between the US and Europe?
I can tell you that globally we had 125 approved projects. 39 of those have been through the US, so we definitely have more projects than the rest of our partners globally. We've got a lot going on in Italy right now. Italy's a good market. Spain has been okay. Germany, they had a lot planned, but because of the feed-in tariff has dropped there, I think some of those projects have been on hold. But those are the three kind of main areas in Europe that they've been looking at.
Mark, on the solar systems, when you have a PPA, if something goes wrong, you call the provider and they send somebody out to fix it. How do you maintain these?
What we did in California to be enrolled in the Solar Initiative program, it required that the installer provide a 10-year warranty, which included maintenance. So we followed that model. We actually backed off a little bit. At least 5 years is built into the contract for operation and maintenance cost. for all the systems. I'd say about half of them are 10 years. We purchase extended warranties for the inverters, which really has the only moving parts in the system. So we've tried to manage the cost benefit as best we can. Really we put a lot of effort into the design and the construction of the systems so that, the hope is we don't have any maintenance issues. So right now that's how we've handled it. We'll need to take the next step of that with our facilities internally, how we manage that process after year 5 or year 10.
So what is the oldest system you have?
The oldest system we have, well, it started in 2007, but it wasn't commissioned until 2010. We had one in 2009. 2009 was the year that we had a system in Arizona. That was the first system we did internally in the U.S.
Does the technology improve year after year, or how do you keep up with that? Like, you have system A in this location, B, better. How is the technology trend moving?
As I see it on the manufacturing side for equipment, there hasn't been that many breakthroughs. I mean, you can get larger modules that are a little bit more efficient, but they come with a price. We've tried to just maintain our performance standards. I went over to Intersolar in Germany last year, and I mean, it was football field after football field of module manufacturers. And in my mind, I'm going, how can this many people produce modules? And there's really not that much different. All the manufacturing equipment essentially comes from the same place. So we've focused less on name brand, more on performance. We use a lot of high efficiency inverters. All of our modules, we know exactly what they're going to output in our models. So that's really what our focus has been on.
So what is the capacity of the system you have? How many kilowatts?
It ranges. The smallest is 57 kilowatts. The largest will be about 5.3 megawatts, 5,300 kilowatts on one roof. It's a 1.7 million square foot distribution center. And we're covering, that's probably about 70% of that roof.
You said you work on mostly on payback. What kind of years do you kind of focus on?
I can't give you the exact payback. I can tell you most of what I showed where there's an SREC program, you're probably looking at a 4 to 6 year payback. If you just went off the federal tax credit and say roughly a 10-cent electricity rate, you're probably about an 8-year simple payback range.
Of the 22 stores that you've done, have you had any roof issues? And if you had to replace any of the roofs before you installed?
No, we had in California, we had a couple roofs that when we had the manufacturer come out, they recommended to do a roof replacement. And at that point, we went back to our board and they approved doing the roof replacement in advance of doing the solar. In all the other cases, we've done minor repairs. It's a few $1,000s to maintain the warranty. But for the most part, all of our roofs are still under warranty for at least 8 to 10 years.
Of the roofs that you replaced, I guess the payback did change on that one.
The payback did, well, it's kind of the scenario, it's the same pair of pants, 2 different pockets. I mean, the solar comes out of one investment bucket. Realistically, at some point in the near future, the roof would have been replaced, so that got paid out of our facilities budget. So it didn't affect the overall payback for the solar system.
You mentioned that with the California program, the state had required a 10-year warranty by the manufacturer. So what are you doing about the general maintenance? I mean, just keeping the panels clean and all that? You had to train up your staff, or you contract that out?
We include that with the contract. So that 10 years is not only a workmanship and material warranty, it's also for O&M. So we have built into that one cleaning of the modules per year. We've actually done some pretty detailed analyses. To give you an example, in Southern California, in Bakersfield, it's very dry. They get a long dry spell during the summer. And at the end of the day, the analysis that was done is as long as we did one cleaning, but timed it within that dry spell, say June, July, it still made sense. We could still meet our performance output. So right now, every system we clean once a year.
Do you have any installation done in Canada?
We do. We have 3 so far that are up and running that were done within the last 2 years. And I know that it's been part of the program for the new stores that they're doing.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
In Ontario?
In Ontario, yes. Yep.
Of the installs that you've done, how many of them are putting the power back to the grid, and what rate are you getting from the utility?
In all of them, there are certain times during the day where we would export back to the grid. But in most cases, the net metering regulations that are in place by the Utility Commission just allows the meter to spin backwards. We build up credits per kilowatt hour. So then as we need that electricity again, the meter just spins, from negative, it hits 0, and then we start paying. There's only one instance in Georgia where they do it a little bit differently. They calculate it per hour. So any hour that we export, we get paid on a different rate. That one was a little bit tricky to work with. But for the most part, we use enough electricity within our buildings that if we're exporting, it's very, very little.
I have a question about that. So what do you design the capacity for? You're designing it above the building's needs to export, or does it just happen that you ended up there?
For the stores, we can max the roof out, and we're probably only offsetting about 35%. In our distribution centers, we're pretty much net zero, just because of the size, and they actually use far less electricity per square foot. Where that gets tricky with the utility is a lot of times they'll limit you to either 100% at a max, 120% of your annual consumption. They don't want you to become a power generator to the utility. And in a lot of cases, you're getting a wholesale rate above that. In New Jersey, if you're paying, 13 to 15 cents, the wholesale rate's probably 3 or 4. So the benefit really isn't there to oversize the system. We try to meet our annual demand as close as we can.
But in Ontario, where you're getting about 67, 64 cents per kilowatt hour from the utility companies versus you pay 10 cents only for the consumption, is not wiser because put it back into the grid and get 6 times.
Right. Now, yeah, in an instance like Ontario, that would take a different method, different strategy there. I'm only vaguely familiar with what they do up there. The U.S. programs is really my focus. I mean, you can still get the benefit of the SRECs, if you overproduce, if you're in a market like that. That's still available, but as far as on the utility side, it drops off pretty dramatically.
Are these all fixed? Are you doing any tracking arrays?
They're all fixed, no tracking.
Okay.
And that's another benefit there is that, there's no moving parts for the systems. So that keeps our maintenance down.
We have a megawatt in Hagerstown, New Jersey, and we added 1.5 megawatts of a tracking array, which is ground mounted. So we're kind of looking to see where it's right on site and which one obviously is going to produce more. I think it's the tracking, but
Yeah, it should.
it does come with those complications and additional cost.
Yeah.
And we're also considering whether or not to, we do solar through PPA because we have a lot of lease properties and we don't have to get involved with the ownership of it or dealing with those. It's quite complicated anyway with all of the lease requirements and landlord requirements, but that's the approach they took early on. But they're looking about whether or not it's worthwhile to just simply invest in land and drop a bunch of panels and just not be tied into the building or the roof or any of those issues. And it brings up interesting questions about generation as well. We have the same problems in California with having the fuel cell, which is, it becomes a puzzle about where we're getting paid from who and when and how much and if, how effective it is, because it's going back and we're a generator and it challenges the whole existing state of the industry. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's a good thing with solar that we've found. I mean, it's similar to your example with lighting. It's a very clear-cut payback when you look at lighting savings from an energy perspective. When you really dig into the numbers, it's pretty black and white with solar. There's not a lot of assumptions I mean, there's some variables only on the SREC side, but if you're looking at just what your generation is and what your offset is, it's a very simple calculation. You can figure out, very quickly how your systems are doing and what your savings are. And from a business case, when we could show that and prove that to, our senior financial management group, that builds their confidence in what we're doing. And, my goal is always to, under-promise and over-deliver, which we've done. And, at that point, they were like, just go. And so it's worked for us. I know it's a challenge, it does take a significant investment, but, we've certainly seen a lot of savings from it so far.
Are all the projects funded by IKEA or externally? Do you have financial support?
They're all funded internally. But I've talked with some of my other colleagues, if you were looking to do the ownership route, there are a lot of financial institutions out there that are willing to lend if you don't have the funds internally. That's why the PPA market is growing. I mean, these guys are bankers. They're looking for a solid return. As far as sustainability, I think, hopefully nobody's in the room, but I think that falls secondary. So obviously, there's money out there to invest in it.
Okay, it's 3:15 now. If anybody doesn't have a meeting, you can hang and ask a few more questions. It's not a problem, but
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Solar is sexy. It is.